And we're back. Good afternoon or evening, and welcome back, LockNation agents. Thank you all so much for joining us from all around the world for the second panel of ClusterCon 2 Visitors of the World. We hope you enjoyed the amazing commercial break between panels curated by the incredible George's Gazetteer team with contributions from so many LockNation agents, and we hope you're excited for more from our favorite Lockwood Co creators. My name is Effa, and I'm going to be your host for the second panel alongside my lovely co-host, Marinda.
Hello. For our second panel, we're so thrilled to welcome two guests who don't require an introduction for most of you. We have returning for the second time to ClusterCon the wonderful Jonathan Stroud. And of course, everyone knows him as the author of Lockwood Co. and the reason we're all here today.
Hi.
And for our second guest for this panel, we have another well-known name in LockNation, first as a fan artist, and now coming out next year with the much-anticipated official graphic novel adaptation of Lockwood Co., The Screaming Staircase. Please welcome Rachele Raka. The talented graphic novelist is here with us today to share her journey thus far.
Hi.
Jonathan, Raka, thank you so much for being with us here today. Please feel free to say hello to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourselves, especially for any new LockNation viewers.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. And no, I liked
Hi, hi everybody. It's Jonathan. It's such a thrill to be with you guys again. And can I just say how much I enjoyed watching the first part of ClusterCon 2. That was an absolutely brilliant first session. So yeah, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it was so good, the first part. But so many information, so much stuff. And yeah. I'm nervous to be here. Yeah, I think. I've been working on the graphic novel for adaptation for Lockwood Co. and we delivered it to printing just yesterday. So it was a long run, and yeah, I'm so glad to be here, and thank you for LockNation for this opportunity to talk about, to present this project and to be here with you.
We're very happy to have you. Now, a quick shout out before we head to the questions, because I don't think we did it in the first panel, but the wonderful Portland Row kitchen background is made by Captions. So a quick shout out to her. She did an amazing job.
And she did our last ClusterCon background as well of the 35 Portland Row living room. And right now we're in the kitchen, so same cozy vibe.
Now let's dive straight in with our very first question. This question was sent in by Catherine in 2002 on Twitter for both of you. Can you discuss how the graphic novel came to be and what the process has been like adapting the series to the visual medium?
Yes, I start because I was in the graphic novel a bit before Jonathan was involved. So I read the Lockwood book in 2018, about spring, something like that. And I was able to read the bulk of them in a row. So I was very hyped about that. And Jonathan has this very, when he describes stuff, is not realistic. It has this cartoony vibe. I think it naturally translates into something a bit cartoony. And I was like, this will look so good as a graphic novel. This will look so good. And somebody told me but it's so easy. You just have to contact their agent and find an editor ready to back up you. What's so hard about that? And I believe that. And years later, we had first contact with Jonathan agent in the summer, and then Jonathan got involved later in 2019. It was like yes, let's do this thing. It was very, very happy. And he had no idea what he was doing, what he was getting involved into. It was a very long process. But yeah, we managed to to arrive to seeing a contract, a graphic novel, and
But you've
And it's
already kind of. Oh, sorry.
sorry. No, I was going to jump in and say that for me, I I can't remember when I first noticed Rachele's beautiful artwork online, but of course there was so much great fan art being produced in the years before the TV show, and so many lovely things. But I did notice Rachele's art and thought how great it was and how brilliant she was at capturing the essence of Lucy and Lockwood. In particular, she did lots of lovely pictures of them together. And in fact, around about the same time, Joe Cornish and the Complete Fiction gang were starting to work on the TV show. And I can remember going into the writer's room for the first time, meeting all the writers, all the creators, and they were sitting around this table, and on the walls around them, they had lots and lots of pieces of fan art to inspire them, basically just to inspire their conversation and to make them sort of think about the world they were jumping into. And prominent among those pictures were Rachele's, and there were lots of her pieces of artwork. So she was already tapping into something which the filmmakers were very happy also to tap into. And so yes, when Rachele suggested down the line that we tried to create a graphic novel, I was absolutely thrilled.
I believe
I can
there's even
imagine.
some like behind the scenes pictures or maybe a video from the behind the scenes of the show, and I think it's very noticeable, like in the background in the board, Rachele's artwork. I remember because that's something like fans have pointed out, like, oh, so fan art was also used in the inspiration in the making of the show. And of course, for fans, Raka's art was very, very prominent in how they picture the world. And so knowing Complete Fiction also used part of that as inspiration was very cool.
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, in the first session just now, I think Claire mentioned how important fan art was to them when they were thinking about how they were going to make the characters look. So it's lovely the way that everything kind of ties in so tightly.
I think that before the show really came out, Rachele's designs were also a big inspiration for a lot of fan artists as well. So I think after she started to share her designs, there were little things that would come back in different designs from different artists, and that was also really fun to notice.
Yeah, it's exploded in my hands. I didn't know. I never had such a positive feedback about something something I was doing. So it was like, yeah, I need to do this graphic novel. So it was a process, but there were so many ups and downs, and every time you were like, oh, we're just one little step close to sign this contract, and then no, it's another year. So and then we had Ghost sabotaging the whole thing because mails just got lost in the ether. So like it was just this curse, and but yeah, but at the end,
You finally made it.
Yeah, at the end it happened, and now this comic that is coming out in January, it's a 61 pages comic, and it covers the first book of Jonathan's Lockwood Co series. And but the contract for now is in for 2 because it's just not the done thing to sign for the whole series, but it made no sense to do it for each and every book, so we have 2. for now. And
yeah,
I'm really
we hope and expect we'll get all of them, I'm sure.
yeah.
I think
was-
everyone's very excited. So
Yeah.
Everyone's
Oh, no.
really, really hoping.
And
Well, it's funny because it's funny that that actually is the same as when I wrote the books, that I had a contract to do 2 books and I did the 2 books, and then I had a contract to do 2 more, and then finally I had a contract to do the last one. So that's how publishing works. You can't sort of get all these things lined up right at the beginning.
yeah, in compared to Jonathan, I kind of a space problem because I can't put everything. There is a decided number of pages, so I have to stick to that, even because I want to be paid extra for more pages. So that's something to consider. And yeah, the plan, if I hope when we arrive to the last books, is to have one more, because so the story can breathe, and otherwise it will be very condensed, and it's a story about character dynamics. So to make it super short, to not include banter, that will just make no sense. I think the very precious thing about Lockwood Co is how the human relationship. So yes, there is the adventure, but if something else has to be cut out, that maybe a simple plot, but human relationships are very, very important.
And Rachele did very early on. Rachele did a brilliant job of figuring out how the whole thing might work, to get to the bottom of how many pages you might need for each book, and where you're going to have the breaks and things. So it's a tremendously sort of complicated procedure, just simply to get to the point where you were making the proposal, I think.
Yeah, that's what was required for proposing this comic. So I had to figure the script, the grosso modo, the script for the whole thing, and yeah, it was quite a job. I was still during the lockdown. I did that. Like in summer lockdown, yeah, go.
something to focus on.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of time. So our next question is actually for Jonathan. And it's, how do you flesh out your characters' backstories even when they are never directly referred to? For example, do you have any thoughts on Kips's backstory? Now, this is a question sent in to us by both Ali Shenanigans and Tanya Babko on Discord.
That's a really great, it's an interesting one, because on the one hand, you want your characters to be 3-dimensional, and they have to have a real life that people can believe in. But on the other hand, you can't sort of create an entire biography for them at the outset, because you don't, as an author, you don't know them yourself. It's like I've just met Kips, and I wrote a couple of scenes, and I'm thinking, well, this guy, he's pretty obnoxious. He doesn't like Lockwood. They've obviously got some history. I don't know what that history is yet, but clearly he's a bad guy. And so I'll do a couple of scenes, and then I'll write something else, and I'll think, well, okay, maybe he's not quite as bad as I thought, because actually he's got some pressures on him as well. And so, of course, as the series goes, I begin to see that this guy is more complicated and has many. I start to like him, and I start to want to bring him in a different way. And that's an organic process. And I don't think I could have seen it all at the beginning. I could not have sat there and going, oh yeah, this guy's going to be nasty, but then you're going to find out that he's actually okay. And it's a much more gradual process, and you're kind of chipping. In a way, Kips's character is there from the beginning, but I don't see it. You don't see it, and we chip away at it through the story, and gradually the like a sculpture sort of coming out of the rock, you start to see more and more of the guy. And of course, there are things that we don't know. Like at the moment, we don't know what his backstory is. I don't know what his backstory is really. Of course, if I was to write something about him where that came up in conversation, then I would discover what it was. So it's kind of there, but I don't see it until I have to.
It's like you're meeting the characters as well.
Yeah, and that's quite important. Yeah.
Sorry, I think that's part of the charm of these books, that you have so much space to let imagination play, and you can figure. I mean, you gave us a background about with so many with specific rules, and so people can go and imagine whatever they want about kids, and that's I think what keeps the fandom alive somehow. That there is so much space to play, to invent, to be creative. I think that's what makes Lockwood precious in a way.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. No, I think you're right. And when you meet real people, you like us guys, we're now talking. We know each other a little bit. We all see little bits of each other, and then we have our own impressions. The full picture, of course, we do not see. But that's okay. We don't need to see the full picture of anybody. So it's the same with a fictional character. You just need to see enough to find them attractive or interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, our next question is for Raquel. It was sent in by DEvaN on Insta and Twitter. And it's, how do you structure your work? So do you translate each book chapter into comic chapter, or do you just go with the flow?
Right now I'm working book 2, so I can. That's very vivid in my mind, and I try to find the bare bones story, so to make it as simple as possible, and then I start adding flesh. Like for book 2, I know that there is the bigger stuff thing, and there are some scenes that are iconic, that are important, and it's the Peter's Ball, it's the black market auction, it's the Peter's house with the ghosts with the mice, and those are the important things that are not strictly connected to the main plot that I want to keep, and I want to give it space to breathe, and I'm trying to work in a way to put this scene to express their potential, and yeah, this is what I'm doing.
And would you say that is it easier to translate, or is the designing and art portion the more difficult portion? Like, what's easier for you? What step do you do first? What step do you do second? And since you've already done the first book, is there something you would do differently going into the second one?
I think when you have just finished something, artwork, writing, whatever, and you've just finished it, you will like to change it so much. Like you need to keep a bit of distance between you and that something, and then you say maybe it's not that bad, and this is the feeling I have every time. And so yeah, there is so much I want to do better with book 2, and this is the first time doing comic coloring, which was very hard because it it's not just it has to work in the whole picture, in the whole story, and you have to keep in mind the limitation of the printing machine. You have to keep in mind lots of stuff, really, lots of stuff. Like I had a lot of discussion with my editor because she didn't find some color cozy. I did find some color cozy, and color is narrative, so for Portland, so we had enough time finding something that would work, and yeah, so it's it's complicated. It's the most complicated part, but I think it's a process. I'm learning, and yeah.
And I believe there were a few things you wanted to share with LockNation. Would you be able to do that now?
Okay. What? Okay. Okay. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
These are some of the pages from the comic. This is the cover. And I have to shout out to Anthony, the graphist at Rudy 7, because those ghostly streaks that you see, those are not printed, those are FX. So it's like part of the cover is glossy, part of the cover is matte, and yeah, this is ghostly stuff appearing. And
it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's so good.
Amazing.
It's so good, and he did all the. We kept the concept Jonathan had for the book to insert newspapers and stuff, and there are lots of pages. I'm sorry, but I don't have an updated version, and this one has correction. But let's pretend it. Yeah, this is Anthony work. This is a page where you have all the newspapers about Annie and photos and stuff, because the problem with a graphic adaptation is that you can't really talk a lot, because otherwise the pacing is low, and so this was a way to solve this problem. And there's that, and this is a page when Annie has just appeared in Portland Row, and they keep falling back to the flashback in Hope's house. And this is the first page. With
it looks amazing.
Thank you. And oh yeah,
I love the colors.
Thank you. Hard part. This is something we changed with Jonathan's approval. Thank you. The idea was to introduce the what's the name? Sort of Magitech armor of the Orpheus Society earlier, because there will be a lot in further chapter. So having already an idea what this machine can do, there's more space on book one, basically. So it can save time. And that's all. That's all for now.
Thank you for the sneak peek.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and for sharing so many tidbits with us, like throughout this entire process. Like every single time you would share something, the Discord, online on social media, everyone would get so excited, like, oh, another snippet, oh, another sneak peek, we can't wait. And then there's so many people who are like, I don't know French, but I'd learn French just for the sake of this graphic novel, and hoping for English translations as well. So safe to say, it's like something people are very, very excited for.
We're hoping for a new translation too, right, Jonathan?
So our next
we're
question...
working on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, carry on.
No, please, Jonathan, please finish what you were saying.
Oh, just to say that we're working on getting some translations, and I'm sure we'll have some news on that. And when we do, we will share it with you as soon as we can.
We will be celebrating a lot.
For sure.
All this thing was a very, very long paperwork process.
So our next question is again for Jonathan, and this is by an anonymous asker. And they ask, all your books have some form of social commentary. Is it a deliberate choice, or is it something that organically happens? And how has it happened for each of your books or each of your book series?
when I heard that question first, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, it just happens organically as I write. But actually, that's not really true. I think with some of my series, there was a social commentary element there right from the start. So, for example, my Bartimaeus books. The very first ideas I had, there were two of them. One was that my hero would be a genie, and the bad guy was going to be a kid magician. And the second idea I had at the same time was that all the magicians were going to be politicians and they were going to rule the country. So right at the beginning, there was this political or satirical element that was potentially in the story. The same is true of Scarlet and Brown. It started with me wanting to write a story about the state of Britain and some of the problems perhaps in society. So, but actually, funnily enough, Lockwood I think was different. Lockwood, I just started with the idea of a boy and a girl going to fight some ghosts, and I did not have any preconception about the social side. But of course, as I wrote it, it's the same as with Kipps and his character. As you write it, you start to understand the world more effectively, and then you think, well, okay, if these kids are the ones who are going to fight the dangerous ghosts, it's the adults who get them to do it. So therefore, there's a social comment in that, and you can start to explore capitalism or child adult relationships. So there's lots of things, but that is not the thing that I start out with. I guess, however, that it's something that I enjoy putting in as a little stratum in the layers of my story.
It definitely, I think, makes it more engaging. A lot of people nowadays seem to think like children's literature needs to be super sanitized or like just be about the surface level adventures. But I think the most long lasting series of children's literature that we see even now, it ends up being the books which have these layered themes that when you read as an adult, you can look back and say, oh, as a child, I picked up on these things. I didn't understand them, but they were very enjoyable. And so therefore, they become interesting to both the young and the older generations.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it comes back to what Rachele said earlier about having keeping space in the narrative. You want to have these themes in there, but you don't want to make them too oppressive, because then that will crush the storytelling. So you want to have you give your story enough space and air to breathe, but then you also have these other themes and elements just sloshing around in it, and then people can enjoy them or spot them if they wish to.
Exactly. I read the books as a young adult, and at first I was like, oh, it's fun, it's ghost stories, but reading the whole series quite quickly after each other, because everything was out already, I was like, oh, hang on, this theme keeps popping back up, which is really funny to discover.
Great.
Okay, for our next question, which is also for Jonathan, it was sent in by Rebecca Miller, 2267. One of my favorite parts of the whole series is when Lockwood and Lucy stumble into the other side accidentally. How did the concept of the other side and their visit to it evolve during the writing process?
Well, that's one of my favorite scenes as well, and I've got to say I can't wait to see Rachele's version of this in a future book. Again, it's something that develops with time. I was trying to find evidence in one of my old Lockwood books that I have. Or you won't be able to see it very easily, but I found that I had been developing it sort of quite early on. I think I knew early on that I wanted Lockwood and Lucy to go to the other side together, and it was I think even when I think probably I'd written the second book, so I was thinking about book 3, but I already knew that in book 4 they were going to go to the other side together. And what I hadn't realised when I until I looked at this today was that the whole idea about that was really closely bound up with a completely different scene, which was the one where another one of my favourite scenes where Lucy is in her flat and feeling really sad and life is bad, and then there's a knock at the door and Lockwood shows up. And in my book I found this a little, and I was kind of thinking it through, and I thought there's a bit where it just says, this is for book 4, we need some supernatural set pieces badly, it says. So I was obviously kind of worrying about this, and I thought Lucy needs to get a new client, and I suddenly thought, oh, there'll be a knock at the door, and she opens it, and her client is Lockwood, and I thought, oh, this is great. Then on the next page, I wrote a whole bit about that scene in her flat and the kind of awkwardness and the sort of comedy of it. But right next to it is me for the first time writing about the other side, and it says, they follow the chains into the cold, into cold clinging mists, and are surrounded by silence. Their movements are very slow. They have no protective clothing, and they begin to perceive shapes coming towards them. And then a little bit later down the line, like a few days later, I found another bit where I thought of the cape, the spirit cape. I realized they had to have some kind of protective clothing. The spirit cape was going to come from the parents' crates in the house. And so over a course of a few days, I guess I suddenly had this the vision of the capes and the fact that they would be going there at the end of book 4. But yeah, it was always going to be very closely connected to their own personal relationship. And I think I found some, so I can't remember where it is, something about a little note saying they go to the other side, all nice and quiet. They don't understand what's happened at first. There's ice on the chains under their protective capes, and that now they have a chance for a heart-to-heart. So this is the idea was that all through the book, there've been things left unsaid, and this was going to be the point where they actually have this kind of meeting of minds. And I think in the actual, at this point, I was thinking maybe they're going to have some kind of quite heartfelt conversation. But in the end, it kind of typically for me, I kind of got rid of that, and it was just more about them hugging, getting close together under the capes. It's all kind of left unsaid, but it's that emotional point where the two of them just become locked together again after their period of separation.
I think like it's really cool because reading that scene, you sort of see the way it's unsaid, but at the same time, all that is important that does still get said, and it's perfectly reasonable for the high stakes, dangerous situation that they're in at the moment, the fact that they need to get out. And so while you're reading it, you have this sense of completeness, like, oh, okay, the important part, the important discussion is what has happened. Everything else is obviously stuff that they will deal with eventually, but the crux of it has been dealt with, and that is very emotionally satisfying to read. And then, as we've discussed earlier, it leaves room for imagination for the reader to just sit back and decide for themselves how they think the rest of the conversation must have gone on.
And actually, that I think is something that Rachele captures very brilliantly in her art, which is something that I think everyone picked up on when it was just fan art, many years ago. But in the graphic novel, it's absolutely brilliant. There are some super scenes with Lockwood and Lucy, and kind of no one's saying anything, but just the way that Lucy is looking at Lockwood, and the way that Lockwood's kind of sort of slightly sort of preening himself just to sort of look at his very best in front of her. They're absolutely delightful. It's the same thing that you're not laboring the point, but the emotion is there, and it's for you to spot.
There's so much body language in your books. I noticed it the other day with basically something I did miss while reading the books, and the show actually made me notice that basically George and Lockwood find a bit iffy the way Lucy thinks she heard a ghost talking, and I didn't quite notice it while reading the book. And then yesterday I was reading the scene where Lucy talks the second time with the skull, and they arrive, and George pushes a sandwich, and Lockwood is very straight-faced, and yeah, it's definitely that they're talking about that. Then there is also that scene when they're in the red room. Then you described all the face of Lockwood, and you see in that description that it puts all the pieces together. And yeah, there's a lot of that stuff in those books, and it's so good, so much of untold stuff that you can pick up on a second reading. Or
Yeah,
It makes it very easy to imagine the scenes.
So our next question is for Raka. And Rachele, we've discussed this before, how distinct your art style is. So we actually have a question about that from Nikatia 1007. She says, we love the unique and distinct style you use to draw certain physical traits of the characters. For example, Lockwood's amazing hair. What was your process in developing this visual style to bring all these visual aspects of the characters to life?
this is a hard one, because that's part I like to imagine. I can picture stuff very vividly in my head when I read books. So yeah, they kind of are blurry, and then they start taking shape. And then you mentioned Lockwood's hair. I think it would have been fun if it was some bit control freak about his look, but he would be actually curly and with London moist all the hair go up at every occasion, so he's always and Jesus like that. Or like I like to put bows on only because bows are such tiny delicate details, and it's so fastidious to always to the bow, and I don't know, there are just some details that just match their personality. Then there is all the principle of character designing, that a person with really vain maybe is characterized by curves, so yeah, the curly hair just works fine. And Lucy a bit more sturdy because she's reliable, solid, and stuff like that.
And so following up from that question, we actually have another question, this time from Basil Gray on AO3. And they ask, so excited that there's going to be a graphic novel. Thank you so much for all your hard work. When it comes to making a comic, are there any tips or advice you would give on how to streamline the process? So I think this is something a lot of artists would love to know.
Um, it depends. It depends a lot in the condition you are working. It depends if you are in a team. It depends if you are solo. It depends how involved your editor is. Normally, if it has approval stages, the clever thing to do is to just sketch everything and then do the line art, and then do the colors, because yeah, it's if you start doing full pages and then you're not approved, you just lost your time. Also, I find that's me personally, how my brain works, but probably someone else too. I kind of take speed when doing all the same kind of work every day. I gain speed, I gain confidence, and instead, if I have to interrupt every time I change the work I'm doing, that's slower. That breaks my focus somehow. I know.
I see. So it was really interesting to hear from you guys about the whole process and the way that characters differ for an author while writing the book, or the challenges for a graphic novelist when adapting even translating them to the visual medium.
I think,
So
we've learned like a lot. And I think fellow creatives would also have learned a lot because, again, in the fandom, we're often having these kinds of discussions like, oh, this is so cool. I wonder how this happened. Or, oh, this is so cool. I wonder how they must have gone through that or came to that decision, and then use that as inspiration for their own creative processes as well. So yeah, it's amazing to learn all these things, but I think now we're going to actually move on to the audience questions portion of the panel, where the audience is going to ask a few questions live. So I think the first person we have is actually a familiar name, probably to both of you. She was just a moderator on the first panel as well, Lavender Ghost Co.
Oh,
Hello. How's it going?
hi, love.
I'm
Good
back.
to see you.
You can't get rid of me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. I was just thinking to myself how cool it is and how lucky we are that we have so many different renditions of Lockwood Co. Like we have like the books first of all, and then the show, and now the comics and the Lit Pens books. Like we're so lucky. I'm so happy.
Next to video games, Jonathan. Next.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, that's the next on the line. Yeah.
So my question is, how closely did you two work together to map out the visuals for the comics?
Well, I mean, Rachele, it's all Rachele, to be honest. I'm just very lazy. I can I can sit back and I think Rachele, pretty much you did everything really, and then you would show me things at every stage.
Okay.
And yeah, but I think I offered the occasional comment, but essentially you had it all so beautifully worked out that my contribution was mainly to do with specifics. So you would ask me about a particular thing in the house, or yeah, just some sort of level of detail that you wanted some clarification on. So yeah, for me it's been terribly hard. Yeah.
Real difficult process.
Oh, it's mad. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Suffering artist.
Jonathan is amazing to work with because he's always, yeah, fantastic. This is good. It's a rare thing. It's a rare thing to have some person who is so enthusiastic about about the stuff. It's not common. I hear the experience of some colleagues. It's not common to have to collab with writers who are so happy about the results. So I feel very blessed. Thank you.
Oh, well, no, you made it very, very easy for me, because the thing I noticed right from the days when you were right from the fan art days is that your knowledge of the books was really profound, and so you would do a picture of a scene, and it would have little details in that were just taken from the text. So I kind of knew that you knew the world beautifully well, and that there was never any anxiety for me. I guess that's the key. I knew that you would have to make some changes and make some decisions about what to do and what to leave out. But I was very relaxed because I knew that you had the essence of the story in your vision.
Oh, that's great. And it must be cool for you as well, Jonathan, because this will be like your second time physically seeing Portland Row. Like obviously it'll be different from the show, but it's like another artist's interpretation of like what it looks like and everything. Like that must be cool for you as well. It's
the most amazing experience as a writer, as a creative person, to see your thing being reimagined in a way that is new and fresh and a bit different, but also is connected to the original. Just like with the TV show, that of course had differences and changes, and it had its own stylistic approach, but it was very much the same. It comes from the same water from the same well, and that's exactly the case with Rachele's vision here. It's very exciting.
Oh, that's so cool. Thanks you guys for answering my question.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, and please give my love to Gina and Georgia as well.
I will.
Good, I'm glad. Bye guys.
Bye.
Thank you, love.
I think our next question is a recorded video.
Hello everyone, my name is Virginia. I am from Ukraine. I have a question. If you could talk to one of your heroes in your respective fields, literary and artistic, what you say to them?
Wow. Oh, okay. That's wow. So many heroes. I think so. For example, we have talked about a vision of world building and how it takes time to sort of create a picture of the world that you are developing. And one of the fantasy worlds that I have always loved and admired most is the Earthsea ones created by Ursula Le Guin, which I loved when I was young, and I still really rate them. And I think it's one of the most tangible and three-dimensional worlds. It's so pungent and powerful. So I think I would love to have had the opportunity to talk to Ursula Le Guin and ask her about the process of world building there. So did she start with the amazing map and then create sort of almost like create the richness that to go on top of that, or did she just start with a story and begin and build the world outwards, which is what I would do. I'd probably start with a scene and I would build the thing outwards. But I don't know, maybe her approach was completely different, and it does feel very three-dimensional to me. So yeah, I would sit down with her and I would get my pen and take notes.
I can say I met some of my heroes from when I was a teenager, and some people working in the comic industry, and I had so many questions for this person and about my favorite comics by them, and but it was during a conference, so they were talking about how it's about their work basically. I started saying, well, sometimes you have to work with very terrible team. I hate so much those comics that I did. And it was the comics I love. So it was like, So I think now when I meet some comic artists that I like, I would just like to hang around them, to maybe let them speak about what they like, because that experience kind of scared me a bit.
There's like they say two different things, like either it's such a dangerous thing, like either meet your heroes or never meet your heroes. So it's like, may everyone meet their heroes who are actually going to, have something constructive and like never ruin that experience for them. So our next question is by Ana Luisa, and she's also going to be asking it live.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So I'm Ana Luisa, I'm from Brazil, and you're my favorite author, Jonathan. I love the world building, the writing, and I have a question for you. That is, what I love about Lucy is that she's powerful yet not afraid to show weaknesses. What was the process that went into writing Lucy to make her strong and relatable at the same time? Were there real life inspirations?
Well, yeah, so yes, I guess there are real life inspirations in that. I know lots of very sort of strong and impressive and emotionally alive women in my life. So I guess I'm lucky in that sense. But again, Lucy, it was the same thing, that I wrote the first. I did not sit down saying, oh yeah, I'm going to write about this girl who does this and this, or she's going to be like that. I just wrote the first scene with Lucy and Lockwood having that conversation as they go to the Hope House, and that whole sequence in the Hope House, I guess, was kind of encapsulates everything about Lucy. We see that she is very brave and she's very powerful and very strong, but she has flaws as well, and she's maybe gets cross about things, or she maybe you have those moments where she, right from the beginning, where in her conversation with Lockwood, you can see that she meets him absolutely as an equal, but clearly there's a kind of undercurrent of something else going on. So all these elements that are essential for Lucy were in those first few pages, and then really the rest of the 5 books is me kind of exploring that little seed. It's like an acorn. The acorn just grows and becomes something bigger. And so by the end, you have it's really the story of Lucy coming to understand who she is, coming to accept who she is, and to be proud of that. So that's really the underlying story. Actually, all the rest of it is obviously important, but at the heart, it's about Lucy's her journey of self knowledge, and so she is a very powerful character for me, and I feel very close to her.
She is very relatable to me as well.
Oh, that's good. I'm pleased.
I think that's one of the best parts about her, like the reason why people feel so connected to this story, especially like the fan base is mostly women. So like so many women have said that, at any age, like, oh yes, Lucy is very relatable because, you can tell she's in the wrong so many times, but she's so but like she has those insecurities, and those insecurities are very relatable. Her mistakes are very relatable, and then the way she corrects them as well, the earnestness behind it, it's just such genuine writing.
Oh, thank you. And that's really special to hear that. And but it's I think like with all these things, you can't really set out to do something like that. You can't have that as your plan. It has to be something that you work through as you're during the act of creation. And if you're doing a big series like this, then the benefit is that you have a long time and lots of space. Again, you have space to let your character grow and go in different directions, and take wrong turns, and eventually you have a really 3-dimensional picture of this person.
Yeah, that's amazing. You like how the character kind of writes itself as you write her, right?
Oh, good. I'm really glad that you see it that way. Thank you for that question. It's because it kind of gets to the heart of the whole story, I think.
Thank you for your thoughtful answer. You're always so kind.
Pleasure. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Anna.
Okay, and for the final fun question, we have Laura coming in.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Jonathan. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Well, I'm Laura. I'm from Monterrey, Mexico. And I've been a huge Jonathan Stroud fan since I first saw the show almost 3 years ago. So, Jonathan, my question for you is, how does it feel after you finish a book series? After spending years developing them, do you miss working on the story, spending time with your characters?
Yes, but there are stages with it, because when you get to the end, I'm sure that Rachele has this same feeling right now, because like she said, she sent off the book 1 of the graphic novel yesterday, and she has been working so insanely hard on it. I think that in that, when you get to the end of a project or part of a project, you feel a kind of release and a relief, and you're happy to be at the end. And then time goes by, and you calm down, and the dust settles, and then you look back at your characters, and you see them more, in a way, you see them more clearly when you have a little bit of distance, and then you begin to feel that pull that you want to go back to them. And in a way, they never leave you. I think the characters like Lucy are always inside me, And of course, it helps when I'm lucky enough to have, you know, new versions of the story being told, new visions, new perspectives. It means that they stay very much alive with me all the time.
All right. Thank you very much. It was good to see you again.
It's lovely to see you. Yeah, thank you
Right.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay, so we have a few more questions before the panel ends. The first of which was asked on Twitter by Fordist _166. So this is for Jonathan. Which deviation in the television series specifically from the book did you find most interesting in terms of characterization or the dynamics between the characters? And I'm going to extend the question a little bit and say for Raka, Rachele, what deviation did you enjoy working on, if there's a deviation, and if you can talk about it without spoiling, because I want this question to be for both of you.
Wait, in something I appreciate in the show or in the comic?
Oh, for Jonathan, it's about the show. For you, it's the comic.
Okay.
Okay, so in the show, I think it was. I mean, there were lots of little interesting decisions they made. I liked, for example, the way that they made Joplin into a woman. That was, I thought, was interesting. So that the whole dynamic between Joplin and George had you know, a different kind of feel to in the book, which I thought was really interesting and just gave it a different kind of vibe. And similarly, I really liked what they did with Norrie, who, of course, in the books, Norrie is just a name, and you don't really see you don't really see her as a character. And Joe made the decision to make Norrie into a much more tangible presence, really key. And I found that very powerful. I thought that worked really well. That you had the sequences with Norrie. So yeah, those were two things that I really loved.
Okay, and Rachele, what about you? While working on the comics, did you deviate in any way from the characters, or did you enjoy putting a certain spin on them in your own way, or maybe even London, or like, because I feel like the world itself is its own character in the Lockwood Co universe.
Yeah, it's true. It's in the world some character. I mean, the changes that were made in the plot of the comic were usually functional or anticipating some themes and somehow saving time for, because you know the books, the more you go on, the more stuff, they're more packed with stuff. So book 1 and 2, I had to be sure to set up some stuff that will help me go faster later. And so the relationship between Lockwood and Lucy, we moved the curiosity turn scene in book 1. And
that's a great page. Great page, that one.
We'll be so excited for it.
And the dementia that mentioned before, and the Wimbledon ride. That was there was the need of a scene to introduce skips, but really the scene at the library is a bit of a double. So it was the Wimbledon ride, and in book 2 it's like, oh, do you remember?
Yeah, that was a really good. I think that's a really good decision, because it gives us a really good meaty scene with Kipps and his gang in the first book. Yeah, and it'll mean that you've got lots more space in the second book, hopefully.
But also the first book is kind of a pilot, so that way there was a scene that it's outdoors, while the first book is outdoors. So that was like to introduce the variety of stuff, introduce the whole cast. And at some point, I spoke with Jonathan because we had to make up a dialogue with Barnes from scratch, because we had to compensate all the scene with Barnes, but some stuff got cut. So, so there
It's
was
only so much space you have.
yeah, yeah. I see it from a very functional point of view. So not like I really enjoy that. No, it's functional. It's because I did this because I need that.
You have to sort of kill your darlings, like your favorite things sometimes don't make it because it's like what's going to serve the story best in this format versus doing an exact one-to-one adaptation.
Yeah, that's the compromise.
And I think it's true. It's true when I'm actually writing the book in the first place that I will often create more material than is necessary, and then I have to make a decision about how to cut it back. And it's a good principle always to strip things back to the essentials, and then then you can add little extra bits if you wish. But what you don't want is something that's shapeless and flabby. And I mean, in the comics medium, the space is so tight. It's so much more restricted than in a novel. You have to be brutal, and of course, Rachele is brutal.
Yeah, brutal.
All right. We have a final question, which is mostly for Jonathan again, by Kate Dariana from Tumblr and Twitter. Do you still hear Lucy's or any other character's voice in your head sometimes? Like, oh, she would say this in this situation? Kind of touched on it, but
yeah, I know. I think so. I think all my characters potentially are there. And if it's a character like Lucy, who I've been talking in her voice for maybe 5-6 years during the process of creating the books. She's very close to the surface. I guess Bartimaeus also, because he was a narrator for several books. And I suppose also it helps that lots of my characters are very sarcastic and make rude jokes all the time. So the Bartimaeus and the Skull, and in fact George and Lucy, they all like to make sarcastic remarks. And so yeah, life being what it is, I have plenty of opportunity to make or think sarcastic remarks a lot. So yeah, those guys are always close to the surface.
I see.
That sounds like such a fun thing in itself as well. Like, for example, you're going shopping and then you see these biscuits and you think, and you have this George voice inside of you going like, oh, we definitely need to get those biscuits. Like, just the silly things or the everyday things, having these imaginary friends with you along for the journey.
It's true, because you as a part of the fun of writing is that you can make your character say things and think things that you yourself perhaps would not do or would not go there. So I can let out a lot of steam with a lot of these characters. But on another level, Lucy, I suppose, her kind of honesty and her set of her morality, I suppose, is something which is you hope that voice is close to you always. Ultimately, my favorite characters they have the humor, but they also have this kind of quite fierce attention to what is right. And I hope that their voices are close to me in that way also.
That's really lovely to hear. Okay, and before we end the panel, I have a question myself. For Raka, we know that you'll likely be working on the rest of the series in the future, hopefully. So my question for Jonathan is there anything else you are working on right now? Any future books or a case book, maybe?
Well, yeah, there is the famous case book that sits there with some ideas, and I look at from time to time. Yeah, I'm working on several different things at the moment, which is quite exciting. I can't really talk about any of them yet because we're still sort of trying to get certain deals finalized. And but I'm excited because I can see some new adventures and new worlds that are kind of potentially opening up. So again, I'm looking forward to coming back and telling you guys about it as soon as possible.
We're looking forward to hearing whatever you have to share with us next. Everyone is like, Mar asked the very thing that I think everyone in LockNation is always wondering about. Like, oh, is there anything about the case books, anything coming in general? But I think we really, really appreciate the willingness you've shown in sharing so many things with us, like last year with the apple tree, and then the year before that with the Christmas short story. So yeah, and even this year with the last book for the Outlaw Scarlet and Brown. So many people enjoyed that series as well. So many people loved
Thank
it.
you.
And so many people enjoyed the book tour for that. So I think whatever you've got coming next, we will be anticipating it.
Well, thank you so much. And you know, it's a great thrill that I can explore new ideas, but also there's a sense for me that Lockwood and Co are always there with me, and there are always new excitements coming. And the primary one at the moment is the amazing graphic novel that Raka's done such a fabulous job of. I every time she sends me a new page, I print it out on my little printer and I put it into a little folder so I have it like a real book. And I'm so excited to build it up. And I think you guys will be amazed by it. I think it's a really extraordinary piece of work.
He has access to my working folder, so he's always seeing the stuff. He myself and my editor, and yeah, shout out to Vero, who is the person who's working with me. She's a script writer, but mostly comedian, dialogue writer, and she's really fantastic, and she helped me because I can write French, but I'm not native speaker. So she gave the talking a flow that is, you know, a bit more native speaker, and it's worth. She did an amazing job, and she's a fantastic person. Really.
I'll have to get her on next time.
I don't know if she wants to speak English.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I would love to have her here. She's great.
Brilliant. No, it's a tremendous, as with all these things, you know, it's a tremendous collective enterprise, and you know, you guys in LockNation are exactly the same, and that you know, you make these beautiful things, and I'm very grateful to you guys for putting together ClusterCon again. It's a real privilege to be part of it.
It was a great time for us to put it together again. Like after the first time, we always had it in our minds that, oh, we might want to do one a second time. But then, you know, things kept getting in the way. And I guess we were all a little burnt out as well. But, you know, we had such an amazing team. So many people have worked so hard from beginning to end to bring it to life. And it's been such a wonderful experience, and it's been great to have you guys back as well and show enthusiasm, because you know, when doing things the second time, you also wonder, like, will this be well received the second time as much as it was the first time? You're also very busy people, and like all of our guests, really. So it's really appreciated.
Oh,
For
well,
sure.
no, yeah, such a delight for us to, well, certainly a delight for me, and I'm sure for Rachele as well. No, thank you for giving us this.
Thank you. It was really amazing, and yeah, you did it. Everyone did a fantastic job. I don't know how you do that, because really I'm so admirative. Do you say admirative? Is it a word? Whatever. And it, yeah, such a fantastic job, really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, yeah, very special.
So I think, that's it for this panel. So everyone watching, we are just going to remind you all again to please watch out, or rather look out for Lockwood Co, The Screaming Staircase, the graphic novel coming out next January, as I believe Rachele said. We needed to get it to book 5. We have the first 2 books incoming. We need to get it to book 5,
To five.
and we need
Gotta be
those
done.
translations. And of course, if you haven't read other books yet, by Jonathan Stroud, The Outlaws, Scarlet and Brown, and the Bartimaeus series are just as amazing, and we highly, highly recommend them, just like Lockwood & Co is amazing. I think you'll find diving into those worlds will be just as amazing as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much, guys. Really, really, such a pleasure to be with you today. Looking forward to the third part in a few minutes.
Yes. Yes, thank you all to the fans for joining in as well. We hope you enjoyed the panel and will rejoin us for the next panel, which is the production panel with William McGregor, Haley Conedo, and Jaylee Tompkins, which starts at 6 p.m. British time. And in the meantime, stick around for our next LockNation commercial break, which was organized by George's Gazetteer right after.